very much for coming this evening. Perhaps before I start talking at you, I'll just tell you a bit about me and how I've come to be here this evening, really. I'm the co-founder, or the founding partner of talkhealth, and it started in the year 2000. And it started when the internet really was quite in its infancy, really. I remember having a dial-up account. I'm sure you probably do. Can't really remember broadband being around much in the year 2000. But I had a bit of a bonkers idea that setting up an online community could be a really good thing. My youngest daughter, who's now nearly 17, had really bad eczema, and I was a bit sort of, a bit kind of disenchanted, I suppose, with the medical profession, not in terms of the treatment that they were offering, but the lack of emotional support, I suppose, because if any of you have got children and you've had them ill at any time, or they're living with a chronic health condition or a rare condition, you'll know that it can be incredibly stressful as a parent. And all you really want to do is find somebody that you can have a chat with who really gets what's going on in your life and really understands what it's all about. So much to the surprise of everybody around me, I decided to launch this online community called Talk Eczema as it started out, and everybody thought I was completely mad and said, well, no one's got the internet, nobody uses the internet, how are they going to find you and how are they going to kind of engage? But undeterred, I pressed on, and nearly 16 years later, here we are. It was an immediate kind of success in terms of, well, I thought it was a huge success back then. People started to come to this community from various parts of the globe, and it started to sort of take a life of its own. And I suddenly realised, whoa, hang on a minute, you can't just go out and kind of launch a community and sort of let it run away with itself. You have to control it, and you have to do something, and you have to offer people something more than just a place to chat. And that's when I came up with a few ideas around how I could develop my community into something bigger than it actually was. And it became Talk Health, and it became a lot of other things. So I know I've spoken to a couple of you just now who are involved in communities. I presume most of you probably have a community that you either are involved in or want to set a community up, yeah? The former or the latter, I don't know. Are you in the space where you've all got sort of a hand in a community? Yeah, okay. So you're probably just as expert as I am. And I'm sure there's lots of stuff in this that you'll go, yeah, we're doing that, yeah, we're doing that. And there's probably some stuff that we can share between us. So I'm gonna go through this, and feel free if you want to stop me and challenge me, ask me any questions, have an opinion, then please do. So what I'm going to look at is how to generate commercial value from online communities. And I think that's the thing that, I'm sure in your world, in your space with your communities, you may have come across this as well, but people look at the site and go, well, how do you make money out of that then? You're offering people, information, you're offering people a place to talk, but how do you actually make money out of it? And I take that as a bit of a compliment, actually, because if people can come to your platform and engage and get involved and get value from it, and they don't really realise that you're kind of making money out of it, it's not obvious to them. I think that's quite a good thing. Although I do believe in transparency, as I'll come on to in a minute. So what I'm going to look at first of all is, what is an online community? And we've probably all got our own definition of what that is. And I'm going to run through some of them. It's certainly not an exhaustive list of things. I'm going to look briefly at the types of online communities. Also, how you build a community. And that's not necessarily starting it from scratch. That is potentially taking what you've got and building upon it as well. And also the commercial value and the monetization of a community. So communities have been around for donkey's years. People used to meet in little villages when they didn't have technology and communication, and they used to sit around a table and talk and share ideas and help one another. the telephone came in to existence and people used to talk to one another on the phone, etc. We've just moved into a whole new field of technology where everything can be done online. So this is pretty obvious, I think, to most of you that, you know, an online community is a virtual environment, a place where people can go, they can interact with one another over a shared topic or interest. And I think the good thing about, I mean, a lot of the ideas that I have and the thoughts I have and some of the examples that I'll discuss with you are obviously based from a health perspective. So your communities could well be very different from this. But certainly in the area of a health community, often people don't necessarily want to be identified. So if they come into something in a virtual environment, they can stay relatively anonymous. And by staying relatively anonymous, they can actually open up a little bit more and share ideas and be a bit more upfront about, you know, their situation, share ideas and get help and so on. Obviously it's via the internet. And usually communities are membership based. Talk Health is a membership community, it doesn't cost anything to join. But by having a membership, you identify who your audience are. And you can tailor a lot of your offerings to that audience by understanding more about them and what they want. So a membership doesn't have to be a paid for service, but I think, you know, most communities will have some kind of you know, sign up process and data gathering, and dependent on what you want to gather and how much you want to gather. You know, in the past we've had all sorts of iterations of our registration sign up process, and we've come to the conclusion that actually the less you can take in the beginning, the better. The less the barriers are broken down and people don't feel like, oh my God, you know, I've got to fill out 20 questions in order to join this community. By getting some basic information, you can either then get them to add to that at a later stage, or a lot of what we do is when we're doing bespoke projects and work, we'll go back out to the community and we'll qualify people against certain criteria so that they don't necessarily have to give over everything at the beginning. They can give over information as they go along, depending on what they're actually interested in. Obviously, with the online community, there's no geographical boundaries whatsoever. We're a UK-based organisation. It stands to reason, therefore, that most of the people that come to our platform are actually based in the UK, although we do get people from, you know, English-speaking countries. It would be nice to think that potentially in the future we could go out into Europe and other places, but then you have to take into consideration, although there are no geographical boundaries, there's often cultural issues and cultural boundaries that need to be considered. So it's something that we've not stepped into quite yet. And really it's a place where like-minded people can go, feel part of something, you know, share their experiences, pass on information, comment, collaborate and discuss. And hopefully you're providing a safe environment for them to do that. And I think the other thing is, you know, an online community is potentially available 24/7. You don't have to wait to go and speak to somebody, you don't have to wait to go to an appointment. You can actually go in there at any time, day or night, and there's usually people online that you can talk to. And obviously everything to do with an online community is all user-generated content. But it's interesting, and you can get a lot from the content that people put out there within the various community environments. So there's loads of types of communities, loads and loads. And you know, I'll put this up because sort of traditionally, if I reel myself back kind of 16 years, forums, chat rooms were kind of the place that people went, and that was a community. But we've come on such a long way since then that there are all these different platforms and communities where you could go and talk to people. And I think certainly at Talk Health we pretty much touch on all of those. We're not doing some of them very well. Some of them we're doing much better than others. It is a bit of a trial and error at times and places. I don't know how many people do Google+. We do, but we don't do it very well. We don't really understand it that much. You know, you're supposed to be doing it because it's actually great for your Google rankings, etc. But, you know, to me it's still a bit of a mystery, and we dabble with it, but, you know, I wouldn't say it was, you know, anything we really focus on too much. Forums are really good for us. Twitter is another really good vehicle. Facebook's not so great for us either. And my theory is that people don't want to go on to Facebook amongst their friends and tell them, I've got this wrong with me, or I've got that wrong with me. I don't know, I don't know whether you agree or disagree with that, but that's how I feel Facebook doesn't work so well. And we've, as you'll see in a minute, we've kind of looked at all these different platforms and kind of worked out what we think would work on them and what we think doesn't. Blogs is a really big thing for us. We've got big bloggers network. Kind of dabbling with Instagram. Does anybody do Instagram at all? Again, it's a kind of young person's thing, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of you in the room that are young, don't get me wrong, but I'm not. And I kind of, my kids do Instagram, and I've kind of got an Instagram account, and I kind of like, you know, sharing pictures and stuff, but, you know, how to use it for business. You know, I've got a great big document that thick I've downloaded off the internet that popped into my LinkedIn, and I thought, right, Instagram, I'm going to read that, and we're going to suss that one out. It's still sitting on my desk, but YouTube, I was just saying earlier, you know, we've dabbled with YouTube as well, but we're actually going to be doing a bit more YouTubing. We've started to write a blog, weekly blog around health issues of the week, junior doctors strike, such and such a virus or whatever. And we're going to take to the streets locally, and we're going to go and interview people on the street and get their opinion, and hopefully start to tie in with the written blog some actual comment from real people. So I'll let you know how that one goes, but we're supposed to be starting that tomorrow. I'm not going out on the streets, by the way. LinkedIn, you know, LinkedIn, I think we've all probably in business got LinkedIn. Again, it's kind of how do you use it? It is a community, you know, what do you do with it? And, you know, there's all reasons why you could and couldn't want to use these particular platforms.
Not on Snapchat.
Do you know, I nearly put Snapchat up there because my kids do Snapchat. But again, I don't get that. I don't get Snapchat in the slightest. You know, my daughter says, oh, have you seen my Snapchat story? She's my only friend on Snapchat. No, I don't even know how to see a story, you know. So, but, you know, I think it's being aware, isn't it, of all these things, you know. Just because I'm a middle-aged woman doesn't mean to say that some of my audience might not really be into Instagram if we can harness how to use it properly. Likewise, you know, if we can understand and use Snapchat, we could open up a whole new audience, you know, but it's just how you do that. And we're always experimenting with stuff. So I'm very willing and very eager to hear your views if you've got any good ideas about how you think some of these things can be used. Okay. So kind of how do you build a community? That's the $50 million question, isn't it, really? And I don't think with all these things, there's never a right or a wrong way. You know, I meet people and people have done it in all sorts of different ways. This is kind of the way that we've done it, and how it's working for us. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about understanding how people want to communicate. Going to look at collaboration. Try and examine and understand how you would engage with all of the stakeholders involved in a particular community. Look at moderation, because that's always a bit of a worry when people set up communities, you know, about the moderation side of it. There's always something in health that people get really frightened of. Do you find that at Health Unlocked?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I go out and see clients and they say, oh no, we couldn't possibly put our name to a forum. Oh gosh, no, you know, we could get ourselves in all sorts of trouble. But there are ways and means, and moderation, I think, is a key part of that. And in order to build a community, you need to build trust and credibility. So how do you do that as well? And hopefully, my little formula here of all these things can add commercial value and can enable your community to be monetised. So, first of all, understanding how people want to communicate. I think that's the first thing, because, as I say, rolling back 16 years, it was forums and chat rooms, and then it's very easy, if you're not careful, to assume that's how people want to communicate, and huge swathes of people do want to communicate in that way. But going back to my previous slide of all the different platforms and ways that people can communicate, I think it's important to understand that Facebook is a community, Twitter is a community, Instagram is a community, and it's understanding that they're all communities in their own right, and just because we might favour a forum or we might favour LinkedIn doesn't mean to say there's not huge amounts of people out there wanting to do stuff on Snapchat, for example. So it's kind of understanding what people want. So what social networks do they use? And what we tend to do, we tend to go out to our audience from time to time and survey them about stuff, because actually if you can talk to your audience, they'll tell you what they want. And it's quite interesting to know the ways in which they want to communicate with people. And so, we at the moment are focusing on the key platforms that we know our audience want to communicate with each other and with this via the platform with us as well. And I think it's worth considering, is the community different from one network to another? Now, I use forums, I use Facebook, I use Twitter, kind of use Instagram a little bit, Pinterest, like Pinterest. So I'm the same person using lots of different communities, but actually as a cohort, are the groups of people dependent on what network you're using, are they different? And I think yes is the answer. I think there are some differences. And it's understanding really the community that you've got, how different they are from network to network, and understanding then how you could potentially formulate a plan in how you can communicate with them and help them to communicate with one another on those different platforms.
Even the same person may use different networks different ways.
Sorry?
Even the same person may use different networks different ways.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, what I put on Facebook is slightly different to what I put on Twitter. I moan on Twitter, personally, not through Talk Health. I've just had a bad experience with John Lewis. So having got nowhere, I took to Twitter and vented my, John Lewis customer service is rubbish. There'd be no point putting that on Facebook because they're not listening to me on Facebook because I don't have an interaction with them on Facebook. So you're absolutely right. I think the same people can interact differently dependent on where they are. And I also think you can be braver on certain platforms. If you're in a forum and you're faceless and you've got a username called Minnie Mouse, nobody knows who you are unless you tell them something about yourself. So actually you could be a completely different person, have a completely different persona over there to the one that you might have on another social media platform. So I think that's a really good point. I think it's also worth, when you're understanding how people want to communicate and looking at the networks they use and how they use those networks, what are their key topics of discussion? Because that will also have a bearing on how you might want to build your community or communities. For example, people on our Talk Health Facebook page talk about completely different stuff to people that are in our forums. Again, it goes back to the thing about in the forum you're faceless, you can actually say a bit more, whereas on Facebook people don't want to talk about their health, not in the same way. And so the stuff that we do on those platforms is completely different. So I think it's understanding what the key topics are that people are discussing and trying to tailor it accordingly. And also I think when you're looking at where we're travelling with this, the commercial value and the monetisation, what are the opportunities out there? Once you've gone through all this and, what opportunities exist? What are people talking about? Are there any things that you could maybe tailor to them that will give you more commercial value and actually enable you to make some money out of your community? And I think looking and listening to what your community is saying and doing can tell you an awful lot. And I think, asking them, like I say, what they want is important. It's all very easy to get caught up in the assumption that we know what everybody wants, but that's not necessarily the case. And if you take the trouble to listen to what they're talking about and ask them, you can learn an awful lot. So collaborate. Health and Lot collaborate, don't you? We do as well. So I know your model with Health Unlocked is you run the communities for charities, don't you really? So that's your partnership platform. And I'm a great believer in collaboration because, several individuals can make a much greater noise out there in the marketplace. So we collaborate with charities, and we collaborate with charities on our forums, our patient forums. And what that does, it actually makes a bigger audience. it gives identity to the charity within our community, and hopefully, there'll be some cross-pollination. But also, a lot of charities don't have the resources, either financially or people-wise, to run a forum, because it takes a lot of effort, and a lot of effort to get it going, and a lot of effort to maintain it and to moderate it, etc. And so, for us, if we partner with a charity or collaborate with a charity, we'll give them the service for free and collaborate and run a joint forum with them, and they will send traffic to us and we'll send traffic to them. And traffic's really good, because obviously that's what people that want to spend money with you want to know about, and if you can convert those into members as well, even better, because you've got some information about them. We also collaborate with academia as well. We work with research organisations. We also run online clinics where we collaborate with experts. So we can actually provide a service where patients can talk to an expert and ask a question in a safe, anonymous forum environment. And again, some of the really cool experts that are social media aware will actually then share what they're doing to their audience. So again, you're bringing people across onto your platform all the time. And we also have a large number of commercial partnerships, which is where we make the money from, which I can talk about a little bit more in a minute. I think the other type of collaboration with a community is to recruit moderators onto your team. So we actually moderate as Talk Health, but what we've also done is looked into those communities to identify people that are in there all the time, that are sensible, that are saying sensible stuff, and we've approached them and said, do you want to be a volunteer moderator? You're not getting money for doing it, but what they get is the kind of accolade of being that sort of advocate, expert, patient, if you like. And it's something that people like to do. If they're in there anyway, why not be in there and be somebody? So we've got some really cool moderators who we engage with and we talk to, and along with Talk Health, the team, then we can actually sort of control, is the wrong word, but make sure that stuff that's being said, there's no spam, and people aren't kind of being abusive, etc. And also what moderators can do, whether they're Talk Health or external moderators that are part of the team, they can help guide people as well. So somebody can come into that forum, they can say something, have a plea, have a question, and somebody that's familiar with our site and what we do and has experience in that particular health issue can actually direct those people other places, whether it's to a charity, whether it's to another part of our forum, whether it's somewhere else on the website. So I think moderator is a really, really important part of a community.
Do you give those community moderators any surprise and delight, like Christmas cards, or like move the training, or anything like that?
We do Christmas cards, yeah. I mean, we haven't done any training as such, and I think we're getting to a point where we're understanding more the value of those moderators, so we've got to try and look after them a little bit better. So perhaps this Christmas they might get a little gift from us as well, and I think it's important. But I think one thing that's come across really clearly is just that line of communication. So you're not recruiting them and forgetting about them. Actually, behind the scenes, you're dropping them an email once a week, once or twice a week. Is everything okay? Thanks for doing this. And that's all they want. They just want to be thanked for what they do. It's interesting because we've also got accredited with the information standard. Does anybody, I don't know how many of you are in health or whether you understand the information standard, but it's an NHS England accreditation where on your site you see the logo, the information standard logo. It shows that the information you're providing is trusted and evidence-based. And it's a bit like doing an ISO 9000. It's bloody hard work because you have to jump through loads of process hoops. But once you've got it, actually you've got great processes in place, and it makes you realise how important it is that the information you put out there is of the right quality. And part of that process, we have to recruit lay reviewers. So ordinary people in the street who are interested in health, but actually, are coming to our website and wanting to learn something and understand it and make sure it's in plain English, etc., etc. And we had a small pool of people, and we've expanded that now. We've got about 20 lay reviewers that look at our content and comment and review before it goes on the website. And the lady that's now in our company is now taken over looking after that. She actually has phone conversations with them once every couple of weeks. And she said the feedback has been immense, because actually these people feel really valued, because it's not just a quick ping of an email, they actually feel really valued. And I think that, communicating, is really, really important. But as you say, if we can send them a Christmas card and a bit more, then I think that's a really good idea. Thank you.
Do you have a space in your communities where your moderators can be and feel a sense of?
We have. We've got a sort of secret hidden moderators forum that nobody can get to unless I give you the URL and the password to get in. We haven't used it as much as we should, and it is something that's, again, is on our radar to try to resurrect. And again, that will involve the moderators going in talking to one another. So that's going to be a little community on its own, with us going in as well and interacting. So yes, we have got one, but we probably haven't used it as well as we should. You know what it's like. You've got all these balls up in the air and you're trying to kind of keep them all going. And, and when you say it, it sounds so sensible and obvious, and why aren't we doing it? So we will be doing it, thanks.
So how do you actually control the content of, say, if somebody poses a question?
Yeah.
How is the content controlled regarding the answer? Is there, you said you've got the moderators there.
Yeah.
Is there a kind of a degree of gamification, so only a moderator can approve an answer? How's that?
No, and I'll come on. I've got a slide in a minute about moderation and whether you pre-moderate or post-moderate. No, we don't. In terms of, this is a patient. We're talking patient forums here, so it's anything goes. People can kind of, we can't control or be seen to be controlling what people are saying unless it's offensive, if it's spam, or if it's just complete nonsense, which we do get on there occasionally. With the online clinics, that's slightly different because that's experts that are answering. And we've also got a facility called Ask the Pharmacist, which is a collaborative partnership with Rowland's Pharmacy. And it's open all the time, and once a week, a panel of 3 pharmacists who are profiled come into the forum and scoop up the questions. So if you were to go in there and post a question, you might post it on a Tuesday, but you're not going to get an answer till a Thursday. So we're very kind of open in how it works. In that case, obviously, we would be very unlikely to moderate, because the assumption is that, as the expert, they will only post an answer that they know they can post. They wouldn't break their rules and regs in terms of saying something wild and wonderful. And it would be the same with the online clinics as well, with the experts. What we tend to do there, it's not so much moderation, it's more about saying, Mr. Expert over there's a question here that hasn't been answered for 2 days. We think it's your specialist area because actually you're a consultant cardiologist, and this question is about heart disease. Could you go in and answer that question? And again, because doctors are actually bound by a code of conduct, we have to take a step back and go, we understand what you're talking about. Occasionally, it's happened a couple of times. A doctor has gone in and recommended a product, which is an absolute no-no. Because actually, if you're going to recommend one product, you should recommend several to give patient choice, etc., and live within the code. But it's rare that happens because we brief everybody beforehand. So there's different types of moderation, and I'll expand a bit more in a minute. The other thing is, within the community, is build relationships with advocates. So we do things like trawl Twitter and trawl Facebook, and find people that are talking a lot about a specific health condition. So if we're doing a focus on something or working on a client campaign, we would go out and identify advocates. So we're building a bank of advocates that we know exist out there, and we would then liaise with them and urge them, encourage them to share content about things that we're doing amongst their community. So that's quite a good one, to actually go out and have a look and see who is out there and who's being vocal. And with things like Twitter, it's dead easy. You can just do a hashtag And if you monitor it and look at it enough, you'll see some of the same people, and then you can judge whether what they're saying is sensible or not. But it's quite good to be able to get good advocates on board. And if you can, that makes a huge difference to any kind of paid-for campaigns that you might be working on. We did one recently for a company that were doing a campaign about it's called Taking Second Look, how you judge people by first impressions. And they did a whole viral, there was about 7 or 8 stakeholders involved. They did a whole viral campaign, blindfolded people, so they had people from different cultural backgrounds, different coloured skin, they had tall people, short people, they had people with tattoos, people with wild hair and stuff, and they blindfolded them all and put them in twos and had them talking to one another. And then they took the blindfolds off and people were shocked because it was like, oh, I don't think I've ever spoken to you if I'd looked at you first, and this sort of thing. And we harnessed a great advocate, a chap called the Scary Guy, who's American, and he's tattooed, look him up on, he's just called at Scary Guy, and he is heavily tattooed from head to toe. He's absolutely covered, he's got piercings everywhere, and I think as the story goes, he was a gang leader in the States when he was young, but in prison and bits and bobs, and decided to turn his life around, and actually he now goes out into schools, into organisations, he works with the police and the army and all sorts, and talks about bullying and not judging people by first appearance. And we contacted him in the vain hope that he might get involved in this campaign, and he fronted up in this campaign, started sharing our stuff, and anyway, one thing led to another. I ended up having a really interesting phone conversation with him, and straight away he's kind of like, what you're doing is really cool, and I'd like to get involved a bit more, and blah blah blah. And it was, and it's amazing how when you just kind of track these people down, how potentially, they can turn into something quite exciting. But Google him, he's called the Scary Guy, but he's not scary, he's really cool. You found him, have you?
Yeah.
Well, there you go then, you see. Yeah, I mean, he is absolutely covered. He's got he's married, his wife. Now, this is going to sound really strange to say when I just talked about, take a second look and first impressions, but she looks kind of just like normal. Normal's not the right word, but do you know what I mean? She just looks like a regular girl, and and he just looks really scary, but he's just a lovely, lovely guy, really nice guy. So it's worth following him and seeing what he's up to. He's really cool. Collaboration. So also engage with community members. I think that's really important as well. Just because we're running a community shouldn't mean that we don't engage with them. Why sit back and let them engage with one another and we're not actually engaging ourselves? So I think it's really important to engage with your community. And make them feel like you care, I guess, and you can care even though you're a company, because it's the way you come across and how you kind of interact with people, I think. So understanding and engaging with the stakeholders is something else that I think is worth considering. So what does each stakeholder want? So I talked about obviously collaboration. So we collaborate with advocates, members, moderators, charities, medical experts, ask the pharmacists, pharmacy people. We collaborate with our clients as well. So I think it's really important to kind of understand what each stakeholder wants out of the relationship. I think once you establish that, it's surprising how the group of you can actually make a difference to how that community grows and how that community interacts. An example would be we had a charity contact us. Sorry, they didn't contact you, Health Unlocked. It was somebody that was on our website, was a member, and was horrified that this charity's community had gone. Their forum had just shut down, and said, could you do something? And we said, well, yeah, we could just set up a forum, or we could go and talk to the charity. So actually we went and talked to the charity and said, look, we can set it up and everything, but why don't you collaborate with us? We'll put your logo all over the forum, we'll put a link back to your website, and we'll do a traffic share situation. And actually, they're getting an awful lot out of it. We talk to them regularly to understand, how it's working. We get a lot out of it. And certainly the people that use the community as well are getting a lot out of it, because it's now providing a service that otherwise might have disappeared. I think listen regularly. It's that old adage, isn't it? You've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So why do we talk so much when actually we should be listening? And I think sort of listening to all the stakeholders can give you quite a lot. I mean, you know, you think about all these communities, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, forums, whatever, blogs, whatever, they're a plethora of information, aren't they? I mean, there's so much out there. It's almost like, where do you start? Because there's so much to look at and listen to. But if you don't start looking at it, and you don't start listening regularly to what people are talking about, how can you try to provide them with a better service, a different service, or how can you move on in terms of building your community? And the other thing I think is to reevaluate all the time. You know, is the thing that you're offering, is what you're doing, is it still relevant? Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Maybe you could do it better or different. You know, we've recently Talk Health is kind of structured where we have health hubs. So you've got a health hub, and then you've got a community or communities that go with that. And Talk Health is the overarching kind of umbrella. And we've recently taken down some hubs because they weren't working. They weren't working in the way that we wanted them to work. And we tried different things. And in the end, you just think, well, why are we flogging this? Because clearly it's not working. We thought it was working, but it's not. So we've pulled right back. But at the same time, by taking some of them down, we've also put some new ones up. Because we've gone out and we've listened to the audience. We've understood or tried to understand what they want. We've looked at what we've got and thought, actually, this could be done differently. It's the same with the type of platform as well. I think sometimes you can flog, you know, a network to a degree, but actually if it's not going to do anything for you or the community, it's not providing any value in any way, why do it? I think that's why, you know, certainly we use different networks in different ways, and the messages we put out perhaps on Twitter are completely different to the ones we put out on Facebook. Moderation, coming back to so do you pre-moderate or do you post-moderate? Well, in a forum, I think it's practically impossible to pre-moderate because you would have questions and comments queued forever and a day. And I think you have to accept that with something like a forum, you've really got to let it roll, and you've got to be looking at it, and you've got to be doing something with it as and when you feel that the content isn't appropriate for whatever reason. Having said that, we do some post-moderation. We post-moderate our blog. So we've got a bloggers network. So rather than just us blogging all the time, which can be a bit boring, although now with these kind of health in the news and the videos, I think it'd be quite cool, we've gone out and tried to aggregate bloggers. So that when you come to our platform, it's not just Talk Health, it's lots of different people blogging about lots of different things. So they can come and they can blog about a condition. We've got a lovely family that blog about their child's Down syndrome. We've got people blogging about food allergies. We've got people blogging about, well, you name it, it's on there. You can go by category, or you can go by the type of blogger. And then we have like a guest blogging platform. And interesting, that's a money-making bit, because some of our blogs are getting kind of 20, 30,000 reads a month. And these content management companies have cottoned on that we're quite a good place to be. So they want to put content on our platform. So we scrutinise it, and if we think it's appropriate to the audience, we'll allow it with one commercial link in it. It's got to be educational, it's got to be informative. So, and we blog ourselves. So we've got lots of different types of blogging going on, and with that we moderate it before it goes live. And there's two reasons for that. One, we want to make sure that the content's decent and it's going to be of value to the audience. But secondly, we ran into a bit of a problem actually recently, where we had a legal letter, saying you've used an image on your blog that you don't own. And we're like, hang on a minute, you know, we're on all sorts of different stock image sites that we have membership for, that we pay for images. How can this be? And a blogger had used an image on our platform that they shouldn't have done, and we had to pay a fine. So we took the decision that actually anyone blogging, apart from Talk Health, it has to queue, and we have to go and we have to look at and check it. And if we think the image isn't owned by the company, we say to them, we can't use this image, but we could use this one if you like. Well, we buy them for peanuts anyway, so we're very happy just to stuff an image in. The other thing about the post-moderation is pre-moderation, we pre-moderate comments on the blog as well. And that started out really because we were getting lots and lots of comments on the blog that were commercial. People were just wanting to comment to get a link on there. So now we make sure that we go in and we moderate before. So there's pros and cons to both, and it's just kind of working out really whether you think, whatever suits the platform that you're using, and whether you think whatever you choose is doable really. So as I say, we don't actually do any pre-moderation on the forums because it'd just be impossible. Interestingly, we did have a situation about 2 years ago where we were running an online clinic on thyroid. And at the time, our online clinics were run with NHS Choices. And NHS Choices kind of forgot to tell us that thyroid's quite an emotive topic. And there's a lot of people out there that aren't getting necessarily the right empathy, treatment, etc. And so we had this lovely panel of medical experts. We had thyroid charities on there who were really a bit kind of, are you sure you want to do this? Because it could go completely bananas. We're thinking, everything's under control, it's fine. Anyway, we opened up this clinic. Oh my God, it was just like a war zone. There was death threats to the experts, people were fighting amongst themselves, calling us all sorts, and in the end we had to make a decision that we had to keep closing it sort of every couple of hours. This was 7 days and nights, closing it. We closed it overnight and stuff, and they were complaining about that, but it got to a point where we couldn't keep control of it because it was just running away, and we couldn't stop it in its tracks because that would have been the even worse thing to do. So we learned quite a big lesson from that actually, that sometimes there are some very emotive topics out there and you've got to be really careful. We did another one not long after that on chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, and that also, not quite as bad as the thyroid, but it was also quite interesting. So sometimes you kind of think to yourself, yeah, we know what we're doing, we can let this roll, we can kind of moderate, after the fact, but actually, sometimes it's not quite that easy. Moderator engagement, I think we kind of covered that a bit before, didn't we? And as I say, I think I said that before, moderate either as yourself or your company or both. Sometimes, I blog as me on our blog platform, but I sometimes write a blog under Talk Health, and I'll sometimes comment as me, and I might comment as Talk Health, and other people in the office, might comment as themselves or the company. And this is a really lovely lady who's one of our volunteer moderators, Marcy Mom. She's lovely. She lives in Singapore. She's got a daughter with eczema. She's written a book. She's done some research. She's got this blog called Eczema Blues. And as a thank you to her for giving up her time and moderating, we're very happy to link to her blog and give her exposure, for which she's very grateful because we've sent quite a lot of traffic to her. So we've kind of collaborated in a two-way street. But she's really lovely, and you can see she's done 590 posts in our eczema forum, so she's really cool. And I think moderate regularly, that's the other thing as well. Trouble with forums is, you've just moderated it and you've turned your back and some idiot's put something else on there, so it's a forever moving feast, and sometimes you don't get there quite quick enough, but you can do what you can do. And we're moderating all day, every day. Even Christmas Day I moderated. But there you go. So I think the important thing in building a community as well is actually building trust and having some credibility as well. Otherwise I don't think people are going to bother to come and join in with your community. And I think the most important thing about building a community, it takes time. It takes a hell of a lot of time. You make little tiny steps forward, you don't feel like you're getting anywhere, but when I look back, what is nearly 16 years, and think of the journey over that period of time, actually, we have come quite a long way really in terms of what we're doing and the communities that we have. But I think it's, it is a long old slog, and I would be the first to say we can still learn loads, there's stuff we're still not doing in the way that we could, should, or isn't actually resulting in the way that we want it to be. And, you know, I'm sure probably you may feel the same out there as well, but I think it's, you know, the more ideas and stuff that you can share, the more things you can try, and hopefully it might just, you know, turn another lock in a door sort of thing and open up. Transparency. That's another thing I think is really important. You know, going back to what I said at the beginning, people come to our site, people have interviewed for jobs, and one of the first things is, how do you make money out of your website? I can't see how you can make any money. And I think that's brilliant, because it means that when people come to the platform, they're not feeling sold to, they're not feeling like they're, you know, having their data taken off of them. I think that's really important. But by the same token, I think when you are doing something that, you know, is making money, you have to be honest and upfront about it. So we have paid for content on the platform. We state very clearly it's paid for content. So if somebody's reading it, they understand who it's written by. They understand that somebody's paying to have that content on the website. Where there are banner adverts, we've got a long terms and conditions. It makes it quite clear that banner adverts are paid for. And when we're going out and doing any bespoke projects, whether it be, you know, survey work, market research, whatever, we go out, as I said before, and we go out fresh to our community, not just the people that we know are our members, but people through Facebook, Twitter, and all the other channels that we use. And we say, we are working with such a company, and such a company wants to find out what you think about so-and-so. So it's very clear that we're actually working with that company, and people know what they're kind of getting into, if you like. So I think transparency is kind of really important, and the more transparent you are, the more people will trust you, and I think the more credible potentially you will be. Join certified bodies. I think it's really important to belong to stuff, and belong to stuff that's relevant to your community. So Information Standard, I mentioned that we are members of the Information Standard, but there are other organisations that we belong to, which, you know, we use content from NHS Choices, we aggregate content from them. So there's lots of kind of bodies and people that you can see on our site that you would recognise, and hopefully that gives you some sort of you know, comfort in the fact that you're not on some rogue website. The fact we've worked with over 150 medical experts, some of them leaders in their field who are profiled on our website, also gives people confidence. And we've worked with about 80 different charities in different ways, predominantly when they're supporting our online clinics, and working with us sometimes in other fields. So I think when people see that you're collaborating with household names, you know, with bodies that are important and have value, it gives them sort of comfort, if you like, that you're okay. And data protection, which I think is the other key thing. When we collect data on anybody, whether they're signing up to be a member or whether they're signing up to take part in a survey, whatever it is, we make it quite clear what's happening with their data. So project work we do, all the raw anonymised data is given to the client. You will only give over personalised data if people have opted in and agreed for that to happen. So we're really, really transparent in terms of how we collect data, what we do with it, and people have that option to opt in if they wish, and latterly can opt out if they've opted in and changed their minds. So I think sticking to a robust system with data protection will also build trust and credibility. So, commercial value and monetisation. How am I doing for time? 45 minutes, that's not bad. Didn't think I could talk this long. So, when's the right time to realise you've got some commercial value? And when do you actually monetise a community? Really, really difficult, that one. Really difficult to kind of know. But I think one of the key things is, I think you do it when you've got critical mass. If you've got 10 people in a community, you haven't really got a great proposition in terms of any value or attracting anybody to do any paid for work with you. But if you've got a community, as we have with eczema, we've got a bigger online community than the National Eczema Society. We are the go-to people when a company wants to work with a group of people with eczema. We're easy to work with. Not everybody is. So we make it easy for industry to be able to work with us. So critical mass, I think, is one key thing in terms of the commercial value and monetisation. The other thing is identifying a strong USP. What's different about you that would be interesting to somebody else? What can you do for your client that they can't get from someone else or by doing it themselves? I mean, obviously in health, pharmaceutical companies can't talk to patients anyway. It's kind of a no-no, you just don't talk to your patients. You can if you're doing over-the-counter products, but if you're doing prescription-only products, you absolutely cannot talk directly to your patients. So you need an intermediary. You need somebody who can provide that link between them and the patient. So having a strong, unique selling point, I think, is really important to consider. Listening to the community, because actually you can learn a lot about opportunities. What are they talking about? Hang on a minute, I'm working with a company over here, we could do something because they're talking about that and they're lacking information perhaps. So let's see how we can bring the two together. And commercial companies, pharma companies want to talk to patients, want to engage with patients, so they're always up for different ways and different ideas how they can do that. We do quite a lot of work actually through social media as well with clients. We've driven huge amounts of percentage increased traffic to clients' Twitter accounts by running something very simple called a Freebie Friday. So just use hashtag Freebie Friday. You can see them on our website. We do them quite often. We send out 5 tweets, retweet us, retweet this tweet, follow us, follow the client, and on Monday morning 10 people will be chosen to win a prize. And that's a really good way of driving the traffic to the client site. So again, it's an opportunity we've identified through our Twitter audience that actually can provide real value. And what it can do as well is provide huge impressions for the client as well. So we can send out 5 tweets on a Friday and we get tens of thousands of impressions as a result of that. And we put a picture with it, so the brand value is suddenly being put in front of a lot more people. And I think gaps in the market as well. When I started Talk Eczema, there was a gap in the market. There wasn't a community to go and talk to somebody else who had a kid like me with eczema. So I thought there's a gap. There must be if I'm feeling this way, somebody else must be feeling the same. So I think it's looking for gaps in the market and seeing how you can plug those gaps. So what gives a community the commercial value and how can it be monetised? So I think database size, quality and relevance is really, really important. If you've got a large database of people that somebody else wants to talk to, you suddenly become very attractive and actually people want to spend some money with you. The quality is also really important. Yes, we run a Freebie Friday and we get a load of trashy people, but we also get a lot of people that stick with us. Yes, we do a freebie on our website, we get a whole load of people sign up, become a member, we get a bit of drop off. But every time we do a campaign, we get a surge, a slight backslip, a surge and a slight backslip. So all the time, we're weeding out the ones that are only there for 5 minutes and building on the community that we've got. So I think the quality is really important. And we know that time and time again when we go out to recruit for bespoke projects, we get really good quality people coming back through. And obviously the relevance as well. Is your community relevant to company A over here? Because if it is, then you should be talking to them and seeing how you can work with them. So things that you can do is drive traffic to a client website. So if we run a sample campaign on our website, say giving away samples of something, or we give away 10 free full-size free products, once people have registered their interest, they're exited onto the client website straight away. So we track it, they can see it from their Google Analytics. So we do lots of work around traffic driving because that raises awareness of brands and of the company. we are the enabler to the end user, so we are that interface between the patients and the client, and we work in all sorts of different ways to engage with our community on behalf of clients that we work with. You can harvest data from your community. You know, there's lots of tools out there that you can use, that you can get all that data down and look at. That's valuable to somebody. And straightforward market research. We do lots of market research. We're moving into some quite exciting new things. We're doing some patient support programs where we've looked at groups of cohorts of patients, we've understood what they want, we've tracked them. We, as a result of that, know that there's certain things they need that they're not getting necessarily at the moment. And so we're working with, at the moment, a couple of charities, a couple of clients to put together patient support programs to support patients in the early stages of diagnosis. And that's because we've gone out there and we've listened to them and understood what it is they want. So I think once you know what your audience wants, there is that kind of element that you can then commercialise.
What generates the most
a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, really. You know, we use a lot of the kind of, you know, Freebie Fridays, sample campaigns, giveaways to attract people onto the website. Once we've got people onto the website, what then really works is the bespoke market research projects, and they have the biggest monetary value, and they can deliver the best return on investment for clients as well. Because you stick a banner ad on a forum, and yes, you can report back on how many times the impressions, how many times it was viewed, how many times it was clicked, and all that sort of stuff. And that was the traditional way of monetising a forum. It's kind of a bit old hat now. We do still use them, but they're usually part of a much bigger campaign where we're doing lots of different things. I think the real value now is being able to say, you know, a client comes to you with a proposition, we want to find this out, or we want to understand this. We're working with a client at the moment who's not the market leader, but second in the market. It's a booming market. They clearly want to become the market leader, or certainly knock the top person down a bit. And the only way they can do that is to understand how the patient might want their medication the delivery method. Is it a monthly dosage of something? Is it delivered in a tablet? Is it delivered in a liquid, etc.? And I think those are the things that can add real value, because once you can deliver that kind of insight, you then enable that company to be able to make huge decisions, business decisions, on how they move brands forward. And ultimately, once you've delivered that kind of project, they come back to you because they either want you to promote it, or they want to do a patient support program to support patients, etc., etc. So definitely the behind the scenes stuff is the key. So I've done quite well, 54 minutes out of 60, that's quite good. And so just to finish, I think the trust that you can build up and the credibility are the main things in building a successful community. And success can be measured in any way, but I think, having a successful community, can be a monetized one or not. Obviously, the idea is to monetize it, but there are certainly lots of communities out there that were very successful when they weren't monetized. Facebook is a prime example. I think the monetization comes, but you can have the success of that community or you should have the success of that community before you can actually monetize it. So that's it. So hopefully that's given you a few pointers. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. Yeah?
Yeah. Can you just give us some figures? How large is your universe, first of all, and also how big is your company? And the third question is, how long did it take before you broke even?
Right. Okay. I might not give you all the answers actually, because some of it's sensitive data. But we have we're in a niche area in health, so we focus purely on chronic health conditions. We currently have 10 specific health hubs. So those communities within a community all vary in size. We've got a largish membership database. Visitor numbers, we're around the kind of 200,000-300,000 uniques a month coming in, which compared to probably something like, sorry, I keep banging on about Health Unlocked, which I think is really naughty, but I'm very familiar with obviously you, because you're in the same sort of space as we are. It's probably very, very different numbers to Health Unlocked, because their model is partnering with the charities and so on, of which they have tens and tens and tens, haven't you? So it's but when we go out and we talk to our clients, they're pretty wowed by that, because we've got such condensed communities within that number. In terms of the size of the numbers of people in the business, we're 10, so we're not massive, but there's plenty, believe you, plenty to do. And obviously on top of that, we have volunteer moderators and lay reviewers, which we pump out as much as we can to where possible. Also by having a blogging network, that kind of relieves the pressure on writing our own content all the time, and it keeps content fresh. So we've tried to use that kind of extended model, if you like, of getting people to kind of like do stuff on our platform for free, really. And what was the other part of your question, sorry?
How you started in 2000 or something?
2000, yeah.
How long was it before you broke even?
Quite quickly, actually. I used my own pennies to set up the first one, which was Talk Eczema, and then I opened up my bathroom cabinet and looked at all the products that were in my bathroom cabinet and made a note of them, picked the phone up and phoned each one of them. And so the site launched in October 2000. By May 2001, I already had 2 paying customers, which covered the cost of my outlay and actually put a few pennies in my pocket. Because when I first started it, I ran it very much as a lifestyle business. I had 2 young children, and it was very difficult to try to grow a business when you've got 2 whippersnappers around your ankles. Very, very quickly. So, and those one of those 2 clients is still with us today. So within 6 months, I suppose. But I think you've got to reel back 16 years. It's probably a bit easier then than it is now.
What's your original background? Are you sales originally?
Yeah. I've got no health experience whatsoever. I worked for Yellow Pages for a number of years, so it was pretty hard selling. Left Yellow Pages to have my first daughter, went back, had my second daughter who was really poorly, to the point where I couldn't leave her with anybody because her skin was open and broken and infected and so on. I won't go into the gory details. Then I dabbled and started a postgraduate degree at night school to be a teacher, which was completely bonkers because I've got no patience to be a teacher whatsoever. But at the time, it felt like it was a thing to do, to fit in with having children, have nice long holidays and all the rest of it. But a year into a 2-year postgrad, I discovered I was pregnant again with my second. So I was going to defer for a year, and then I was going to go back after I'd had her, but she was fine for 5 months, and then she got an infection, was in hospital, and came out looking completely different to the way that she went in. And I was told, it's only eczema, it'll go away. No, it didn't. It just got worse and worse and worse. So I sort of wavered around for a little while, thinking, what am I going to do, and just sat there and thought, I know what I'll do. I'll try and find people like me. Where are they? Let's go out there and try. And that's really, I suppose, because I've got a sales background, I'm not frightened of picking up the phone and asking people for their money. And obviously, it's become a bit more sophisticated since the very early days of saying, because actually both companies just turned around and said, well, you sound like you're onto something. We have no idea whether we're going to get our money back or not, or whether we're ever going to see any benefit from it, but you sound like a nice person. We'll spend some money with you. And it was a paltry amount of money. I mean, I think they were spending something like £400 or £500 a month each. I mean, it was I was making about £1,000 a month, which is preposterous now when I look back, but do you know what? Within sort of 2 or 3 months, it covered the cost of the website, and actually, as I say, put those pennies in my pocket. So I was actually able to really dedicate some proper time to it. So I suppose, yeah, the sales background helps, but I'd never run a business before. But you just learn as you go along, don't you? Really?
Sorry, another question.
Yep.
There's obviously an awful lot of communities in this area. Several of them in the room, probably.
Yeah.
When you're selling, you said you've got to have a USP. What is your USP?
Well, I think it's the fact that we've got, we've got specific areas that we concentrate on, specific health areas. So, people can come in and, look and say, well, they've got a community for arthritis, they've got a community for allergies. And then I think it's just a question of being able to go out to that community and talk with them. And I think because we've built up sort of some credibility over the years, they're very keen to come forward and have their say. And I think what we're doing is we're allowing patients to have their say. Interestingly, we did a survey recently saying to people, why do you get involved in product trials and product tests? Why do you fill out surveys? Why might you want to have a company like us track you for 12 months and understand more about your health? And if we did track you, would you want to be paid for it, etc., as kind of covering your time? And I was quite shocked, but the overwhelming reason why people actually wanted to get involved with stuff we do, patients that is because they felt A, they were making a difference potentially to their own treatment, and B, potentially helping people in the future. And I don't really know whether that's something certainly isn't something we've deliberately gone out to, to say this is what we do, but clearly what they've gathered from what we do is that, they are hopefully making a difference to themselves and to others, and they don't actually see big pharma kind of breathing down their necks, like Big Brother. They don't feel it's intrusive. They feel that actually there's value in being involved and hopefully having an impact on them and others. Did that answer the question? I sort of get sidetracked, sorry. Yeah.
Have you ever quoted a panel or sort of guest, or where you've had like a guest come in and to answer questions, and then just no one's turned up, or a very low turnout, and maybe they're keeping fuss?
We have had low turnouts on things. We do Twitter chats, and sometimes, people say, yeah, I'll be there at 12 o'clock to join in the chat, and they're not there, and you're thinking, oh my God. So yeah, I mean, we still do stuff now where, things like Twitter chats that we get disappointed with. We don't have a problem getting people recruited onto, surveys or trials or things like that. We have the reverse. We end up with too many, and we end up having to disappoint people. So there's certain things we're very strong at doing, and other things not so. But again, it's kind of like managing expectation, isn't it? We work with clients and say we want to do a Twitter chat. We go, yeah, fine, that's great, we'll do a Twitter chat, but don't expect loads of people coming into chat, because it ain't going to happen. But what you will get out of it is you'll get the build up to the Twitter chat, and we can guarantee X amount of impressions across social media. You'll get a storify of the chat, and we'll summarise it and write a blog about it, so you'll get all the publicity that way. So I think it's managing expectations. So it's understanding what you can do really well and what's bloody hard to get people to get engaged with. So yeah, we have had not so good turnouts.
I mean, we've had it on Which Conversation. We had Esther Ranson. I think 8 comments on hers, and then a community member writes something who's on the community.
Yeah, I know. I know. There's no rhyme or reason, is there, for it either? You think you've got something sussed, and sometimes it can work brilliantly, and other times it's a complete flop, and then you've got a great idea, think it'd be brilliant, and nobody's interested in it. But I think it's also not being frightened to try something and put your hand up and go, yeah, we tried it, it didn't work. And I think being honest with, I have a great expression I use a lot, where when I'm not sure whether I can deliver something. If I'm sure I can deliver something, I will blooming well say, yep, I can do that for you, and I do it, and I get the end result. But recently, for example, we've been approached by somebody who wants us to recruit for a clinical trial. Well, it's not kind of our core business. It's not what we do. I'm pretty confident we can find the people that this company wants, but I always say best endeavours, because I really don't want to promise something I can't deliver. And if I say best endeavours, it's up to them whether they spend the money or not. So I think, again, it's just about managing the expectation and being transparent about what you can and can't do. So. Any other questions? Or
Should we break for pizza and chat? Just
cool.
thank Deborah one more time.
Thanks very much. Thank you.